Forsaken Tales. Episode 1. The Bloodline. The Gray Man of Pawleys Island is one of South Carolina's oldest legends. For more than 200 years, people have reported seeing a man dressed in gray standing along the beach before major storms. Most believe he's a warning, a ghost trying to save lives. Others believe he's nothing more than a story, a piece of coastal folklore passed from one generation to the next. Until last year, that's exactly what I thought. I was producing a documentary on South Carolina legends. The Gray Man was supposed to be one chapter, a few interviews, a few old newspaper articles, maybe some dramatic footage of storms rolling in from the Atlantic. Nothing more. I had no idea it would consume the next 6 months of my life. It started in a small archive room in Georgetown County. Dust-covered boxes, old newspapers, faded photographs, thousands of pages documenting storms that had battered the South Carolina coast for generations. At first, everything matched the legend. Witnesses describing a tall man in gray, a figure standing alone on the beach, always before a storm, never after. Always watching the ocean, never speaking. The reports were strange, but not frightening. Then I found a newspaper clipping dated September 1893. A hurricane had struck the coast. Several homes were destroyed. Fishing boats were lost. One young man vanished during the storm. His body was never recovered. Normally, I would have moved on. People disappear during hurricanes. It happens. But someone had written a note in the margin of the article. 3 words, Gray Man Seen. The handwriting was old, barely legible, yet something about it bothered me. I copied the article and continued searching. Days later, I found another report. 1911. Different family, different storm, another disappearance, and once again, a mention of the Gray Man days before landfall. That was the moment I stopped treating it as coincidence. I began building a timeline. Every major hurricane I could find. Every reported Gray Man sighting. Every missing person. The deeper I dug, the stranger it became. 1954. A disappearance. 1960. Another. 1989 during Hurricane Hugo. Another. The names were different. The towns were different. The circumstances varied, but the pattern never changed. A sighting, a storm, a disappearance. One person. Always one. I remember staring at the timeline late one night. The office was dark except for the glow of my computer screen. I kept telling myself there had to be another explanation. Confirmation bias, coincidence, selective reporting, anything. Yet every time I revisited the records, the pattern remained. It felt impossible, but impossible things have a way of surviving longer than they should. Weeks passed. My documentary became an obsession. I stopped looking for evidence of the Gray Man. Instead, I started investigating the missing people. Who were they? Why them? What connected them? The answers weren't easy to find. Some records were damaged. Others had been lost entirely. I spent hours digging through census reports, marriage licenses, church records, and old family histories. Most of it led nowhere. Then one night I found something, a surname. It appeared in 2 separate disappearances decades apart. At first I thought it was a coincidence. Then I found another connection, and another, and another. By sunrise, my desk was covered in notes, family trees, photographs, highlighted documents. For the first time, I began to suspect the victims weren't random. I spent the next month trying to prove myself wrong. Instead, I proved something far worse. Every missing person traced back to the same ancestor, a fisherman named Elias Mercer. According to local records, Elias disappeared during a hurricane in 1822. No body was found, no wreckage, nothing. His disappearance became one of the earliest stories associated with the Gray Man legend. At first, that seemed interesting. Then, it became terrifying, because every victim after him shared his blood. Generation after generation, storm after storm, one descendant vanished. Every time. I rebuilt the family tree from the beginning. Every child, every marriage, every generation. 2 centuries of history spread across my office wall. The chart grew larger every day. Lines crossing lines. Names branching outward. Lives unfolding across 200 years. And every branch eventually ended the same way. With a storm and a disappearance. The deeper I followed the tree, the quieter I became. I stopped telling people what I was working on. Stopped answering questions. Stopped sleeping much. I was afraid of what I might find. But I couldn't stop. I had come too far. One night, just after midnight, I finally reached the last generation. The final branch. The final connection. Outside, rain tapped against the windows. Thunder rolled somewhere in the distance. I remember staring at the screen. Certain there had to be a mistake. I checked the records again, then a third time. Every document matched, every date aligned, every connection was real. Slowly, I followed the line from Elias Mercer, to his son, to his grandson, to his great-grandchildren. Across 2 centuries, across every storm, across every disappearance, until I reached the final name. My name. I sat there for a long time, unable to move, unable to think, because for the first time since I began the investigation, I wasn't looking at a legend. I wasn't looking at a documentary. I wasn't looking at history. I was looking at myself. And somewhere beyond my office window, a new hurricane was forming in the Atlantic. The final name on the page was mine.